Hi, my name is Robert. This video is designed to give you step-by-step detailed instruction on completing the task at hand. Visit my YouTube channel and watch my disclaimer video. And please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you find the information you're looking for. Thank you very much for watching. Hey, this is Robert. I'm going to put together a quick video to kind of show you how to troubleshoot a code that can be misleading, and it's often accompanied by another code. And that code is a P0243, which is a turbo control valve malfunction code, and it's often accompanied by the P0171 code, which is normally a vacuum code letting you know that your system is running rich, I believe. This code is unique to the turbo car since it's a turbo control valve solenoid malfunction error, and my car does not have one of those, but I can get you in the general vicinity of the code and the problems and what most people have done to fix them. Okay, most of the time this code circles around back to a bad mass airflow sensor. Your mass sensor is located right on the back side of your air intake box where your air filter is, and this is your airflow sensor here, mass sensor. This is the wire plug into it. Sometimes you can unplug it, start, and continue to drive your car with that code. However, if that car is having issues with that turbo control valve, you don't want to drive it like that often because it may be over boosting the turbo if it's really malfunctioning. Now, on these Volvos, all this stuff is kind of tight in here, but basically when that code is thrown, your mass airflow sensor is in charge of monitoring and controlling all of the air on the car. Of course, you have your throttle body and your throttle plate and a couple other things that assist it, but that mass airflow sensor communicates directly to your computer and tells your computer how to regulate the fuel and how to regulate the air. So that mass airflow sensor is critical. Anytime it senses that there's a problem with the air pressure in delivering air to your motor for your firing, it will trigger a code and let you know that something in the system is not right. Now, the mass airflow sensor has a few wires connected to it, and it has a few things of sensors in there. As you can see here, my connector has 4 wires. So if any part of this mass airflow sensor go bad, it'll throw a different code. And it just so happens that sometimes the part of the mass sensor that monitors that turbo control information goes bad, and it throws that turbo control valve code. So if you have that code, about half of the time, or maybe a little more than half of the time, you actually have a problem with your MAF. So what most people do is they disconnect the pipe to your MAF there and probably take the MAF off. They spray it with cleaner. I'll either link a video here on how to clean your mass airflow sensor, and they spray it with a special mass airflow sensor cleaner, put it back together, clear the code, and see if that clears the air. If the sensor's dirty, especially that part that monitors that part of the system, that may cure your problem. Now, you got a 50-50 chance of cleaning the sensor may help it work, or you may need to replace the sensor to get the problem fixed. So try cleaning it. If that don't work, that doesn't mean that the MAF is not bad. That just means that cleaning it didn't fix it. So now what you want to do is check some other things on the car to see if there's something else wrong. Now, my car doesn't have a turbo control solenoid, but it does have some kind of turbo solenoid there, It's a little different than the ones on the newer cars, but you see this wire plug connection. There's a valve there, a turbo valve there, that has some vacuum lines going to it. So what you want to do is you want to access that valve that's normally mounted on the passenger side of the airbox. Check the vacuum lines going from it back to your turbo and anywhere else that they go. Now that valve normally has 3 vacuum lines coming off of it. They're color coded. Don't get them mixed up. Make sure they're in good condition. Make sure the other end of them are properly plugged in and in good condition, and you can assume that it's not a vacuum leak off of that turbo control valve. This is where the turbo control valve is normally located at. It's just under the tube coming off the MAF down on the passenger side of the airbox. And here's a picture of what the valve looks like. It has an electrical plug in it and 3 vacuum lines coming off of it. And there's another quick view of a turbo control valve. Another thing that you have to consider is that you may have an intake leak. You got an intake tube here going to your turbo. You got an intake tube here that comes off your intercooler and goes into your intake. You have a intake tube here that goes into your airbox. That is likely not going to be an issue, but under there's an intake tube that goes back to your turbo, hooks up to this, and it goes down to the bottom of the intercooler. That may have a hole or be loose. So you need to check these intake tubes, that make sure they're serviceable, make sure none of the clamps have cut through the hose, and make sure that they're not leaking air. Now, on the front of, here's your radiator. On the front side of this radiator is the intercooler. And if that intercooler is damaged or cracked, it may be leaking air, and that could also cause this error code. Now, a good way to test for air leaks in your intercooler or in these hoses is, first of all, go under the car and remove the splash pan, the protective pan from under the car, so you'll have access to that lower intercooler hose. Then you get somebody to help you, have them go in the car, start the car, rev the motor up to about 1800 to 2000 RPMs with the car in reverse. So you want the parking brake set. They need to have a good foot on the brake, and you let them rev that motor for about 10 seconds while you look for air leaks in these tubes. The air leak will normally be pretty obvious, but you listen for them and you feel around. If you feel an air leak, that's where your problem is. If you don't feel an air leak after 10 seconds, have the person in the car stop the revving, put the car in neutral or park, and let it idle for about 2 minutes or so that the transmission doesn't get too hot. So once you let the car idle for a few minutes, rev the motor again up to about, put it in reverse, rev it up to about 1800 to 2000 RPMs, and feel around these intake tubes. If you feel air escaping, that's where your leak is. That's where you need to get it fixed. So okay, let's assume you have no intake leaks. You don't see any vacuum leaks. You even want to check these vacuum hoses going around to these solenoids and stuff around the motor. Check these different vacuum hoses going to the brake booster and up to your intake manifold. If you can't find any vacuum leaks or hear any vacuum leaks, then you probably got one or two things: a bad mass airflow sensor or a bad turbo control valve. If you can find somebody to swap a mass airflow sensor with, that's great. You can eliminate that. If not, you're going to have to choose to replace one of those. I would recommend you replace the mass airflow sensor unless you know that you're getting strange power surges to the car. So if you try to drive the car and the car seems to have a lot of power out of the turbo, and the car seems to accelerate a lot higher than normal, then you likely got a turbo control valve bad. But if the car is sluggish, tries to stall, and you don't feel that peak in power, then I would replace the mass airflow sensor. So, first thing you want to do is clean your mass airflow sensor, reset the code, see if everything goes back to normal. Second thing you could do is disconnect the mass airflow sensor and drive the car around a little bit to see if you're able to drive it like that, and make sure you don't have any over boosting on the turbo. Okay, then you want to check the car for vacuum leaks or air leaks or massive air intake leaks. And then last but not least, you want to replace the mass airflow sensor, and if that doesn't fix it, you probably get a bad turbo controller. If you got any questions, go ahead and post them. Me or somebody else will answer them for you. If you feel that this information was beneficial, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can also subscribe to my channel so that you can get notification of future videos that I post. Visit my channel. I have all types of do-it-yourself videos there. You can leave questions here, and I'll try to respond to them as quick as possible. You can also visit my website at robertspinner.com. Thanks again for watching.